There was no positive momentum for the Yankees on Monday night after a 12-5 victory over the Athletics on Sunday. The Yankees go up to Toronto and earn themselves a lead that the bullpen was not able to keep. They had a 2-0 and a 3-1 lead heading into the bottom of the sixth inning, but things kind of went off the rails from that point on, and the Yankees end up losing this game. But Rodon started the inning, allowing a double to Davis Schneider. Mark Leiter came in and replaced him, gave up a single, strikeout, single. Loaiza came in, catcher's interference, and a single. And by the end of the inning, the Yankees were down 5-3. They do get a Cody Bellinger home run in the eighth inning that brought them close, and they had a couple runners on base in the ninth inning with a chance to tie it, but were just not able to get the job done. And really the story of this game was twofold. It was the bullpen coming in and not being able to get the job done. Mark Leiter, in particular, his ERA is now up over 4 after allowing 3 total runs, 2 earned runs in 1/3 of an innings pitched. He's got his 5th loss of the year. He's 4-5 right now. Rodon had a pretty decent start. His final line doesn't look anything spectacular with 5 innings, 2 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, 5 hits, and 3 walks. One of those runs was allowed by Mark Leiter. But, when he left the game, the Yankees had enough to win. Jazz Chisholm hit a 2-run home run early in this game that really got the Yankees off and running. Giancarlo Stanton an RBI single as well in the 5th. And so the Yankees were sitting in good position, but just their bullpen couldn't close it out. We also found out earlier in the day that Fernando Cruz has a high-grade hamstring. I believe it's a hamstring strain. Let me double check. But a high-grade strain. He went on the IL. And he is going to miss some, it looks like, significant time. When they say a high grade, like a low grade strain, would typically, it's an oblique strain, excuse me, a high grade oblique strain. So that could be August if we want to be perfectly, I don't know, I want to say pessimistic, but I think it's reasonable. If we're talking low grade strain, I would say maybe he's back post All-Star break. But a high-grade strain, I think that we're talking August before we see Fernando Cruz again. So that continues to add to the Yankees' need to add to the bullpen here in the next month. But yeah, just a disappointing effort. Judge got walked in this game a couple times intentionally. Trent Grisham left this game he is the one with the hamstring, left the game with the hamstring injury. Jason Dominguez came in and replaced him and got 2 hits in his 3 opportunities. Looked really good again. I would like to see him play as close to every day as possible, but again, I understand what the rotation is at the moment, but I am starting to think with, JC Escarra really not showing much at the plate, and really not showing much in terms of throwing runners out, whether or not that he starts to become the true odd man out. If it's not going to be Wells behind the plate, you do wonder. I know Escarra has caught Rodon a lot this year, but we don't typically see the quote-unquote personal catchers much anymore. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it with Boston, it was like Doug Marabelli and Tim Wakefield type of a thing. Those were a little bit more common in the aughts and the 90s. They've kind of fallen out of vogue a little bit as teams look to maximize every single piece and maximize their chances to win on the margins. I do wonder if we're going to get to see Ben Rice start at catcher a little bit more often, and just. Again, whether it's I don't think Wells is in danger of losing much time. I know the batting average isn't where it needs to be, but he's been driving in runs. He is one of the best framers in baseball, and the pitching staff loves him and loves the way he calls games. So I don't see him being at a risk of losing the job, but I do think as you start to look at trying to find every piece possible, if my choice is start Ben Rice at catcher and also get to start Paul Goldschmidt, or also get to start Giancarlo Stanton, then or also get to start Jason Dominguez, I'm going to choose that option over starting J.C. Escara and Ben Rice together, and then like what happened in this game with Jason Dominguez and Paul Goldschmidt are both sitting on the bench. So that is my 2 cents on that matter. The other story coming out of this game is the defensive choices, for lack of a better phrase, by Anthony Volpe. We've talked about this at different points on the podcast before about how, Volpe was really solid defensively his rookie year. He wins a Gold Glove that year, but his best year defensively was actually last season, where he was truly an elite defensive shortstop. He has been average to slightly above average this year by all the metrics. By the eye test, I think you've been disappointed. And I think it's, little things that might not show up in the box score like you saw on Monday night where, he makes the decision a couple different times to throw to first base with no real chance to get runners out, which allows other runners that are on base to get into more advantageous scoring position and where they ended up coming around and scoring. So you've seen a lot of mistakes from Volpe in the field that we have not seen in his first couple years in the major leagues. He's booting some balls. His throwing decisions, some baseball IQ type stuff. It's been a very weird year for him. And I know Aaron Boone insists that the struggles that he's had at the plate for the most part this year are not coming with him on the field or on the base paths. And look, you do see players. I'm a big fantasy baseball player, but I'm a big analytics guy, a big numbers guy, both traditional and advanced. And I spend a lot of time looking at a lot of different players because I am fascinated by players that can add value in non-traditional ways. And when I say non-traditional ways, I mean, I think we understand how players add value with their bat. I think we understand how players add value if they're a pitcher, in those scenarios by, pitching. But, and to me, obviously, I think we understand how players add value by framing at catcher. But I like to see some of those other pieces, like where players can win defensively and where they win on the base paths, and particularly on the base paths, not stolen bases. I think we understand what stolen bases are. I personally have the belief that due to the fact that it is the one base running counting stat that is publicized and the fact that it has a key role in fantasy baseball, I do believe that stolen bases are a little bit overrated. But that's a conversation for a different day. However, what's not overrated is the ability to run the bases. And that is being able to take the extra base, being able to go first to third, being able to score from second on singles, being able to leg out singles that others might not be able to, being able to stretch what most batters would have a single into a double. Just, again, you talk about the win probability of I guess I should say win probability, although that technically is a piece of it all. Let's narrow it down a little bit to run probability of, a runner being on second versus being on first, a runner being able, on a hit going first to third, what is the probability of your team scoring with runners on first and third compared to first and second? How many different ways can you score on third that you can't score from second? How many ways can you score from second that you can't score from first? So there are a lot of different elements of that. And Volpe hasn't been very successful on the bases this year either. And he's always, in his short career, been a well above average base runner, a well above average base stealer, and he's been neither so far this season. So really every element of his game. Now I know technically his under the hood hitting stats are better than they've been, but that's only because the first 2 years were abysmal. So it's a little bit damning with faint praise there. But the things that made Anthony Volpe, and the things that made up for the fact that his bat was not where it needed to be relative to a lot of other shortstops was the fact that you were getting elite defensive metrics from him. You were getting elite, maybe not elite, but you were getting well above average base running. You were getting all of those pieces. Like I'm looking up his Baseball Savant numbers right now. He was in his rookie season. He was in the 83rd percentile in base running value. That's really, really good. 61st% in fielding value. So again, he was a good fielder, but probably not the Gold Glove worthy that he ended up getting. Last year, he was elite in both categories. He was in the 97th percentile in base running value and the 92nd percentile in fielding. Like, he was an elite fielder and elite base runner, and it made up for the fact that he was a very, very poor bet. Now, you don't have him being quite as poor of a bet because, I mean, he ranked, you want to talk about where he was ranking. In 2023, he ranked in the 5th percentile with a bat. 4th percentile last year. He's 43rd percentile this year. That's still not good. That's still below average. 50's average, 100's amazing, 0 is get off the field. But he's also now a career low 60th percentile in base running average. A far cry from where he's been. And after going 61 and 92, he's now down at 57 for fielding run value. So he's kind of put himself in this, like, he's giving you above average base running, but not great. He's giving you a slightly above average fielding, but not great, and below average hitting. It's not really doing much for you, right? Like, it's one of those things where if you were going to look at his numbers and you were going to say, okay, because I think we're having a different conversation. I mean, obviously the bat's a problem. And there's part of me that, I know he's young. I'm trying not to be, he's 24. But he's also 24. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get a couple more years, but like, we rarely see the Joe Adele thing that's happening right now. It does happen. We do see guys break out in their late 20s with the bat. But typically, when you've been playing as much as he has, usually you want that bat to come around in the mid-20s, and it's not there yet. Like, you look at it right now, 9 home runs, 44 RBI. He's got a 723 OPS. I mean, it's just not, he's not doing that much. And the thing to me is, it's fine. I think those numbers on some level would be fine if he was doing all the other things well. And I think we're having a different conversation about it because people are going to point, to all these other things, but like his OPS plus now is down to league average. I want to see what his WRC plus is now that I'm looking at this, but for a long time there was, and particularly because of his powerful start to the season where he hit a bunch of home runs early. His WRC plus is, I think it's 104 now. Yeah, 103. It's just the argument for him this whole time, this season from his defenders was that, yeah, blah, 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 he's struggling at the plate, but he's got a 124 OPS plus or 124 WRC plus, and he's 24% better. And while, yes, at the very second that was being talked about, that was true, it didn't illustrate how far he had fallen from what he had done early in the year. And you take out that early in the year stretch, I know you technically can't do that. All the at-bats count the same. The bad ones count just as much as the good ones. I get that. But I think by looking at his season totality instead of what he did the first couple weeks of the season, you would see a guy that has been playing as a significantly below average bat, even at shortstop, where it's a lot more forgiving, those advanced analytics for hitting stats as a shortstop. I think you would look at that and say he's playing below average baseball. And that's kind of what you're looking at right now. You're looking at a guy that's just kind of doing everything at league average. And that's not good enough, because what the problem was, it's not just that you're a shortstop for the New York Yankees. Not a single person on earth expected Anthony Volpe to be Derek Jeter. Nobody compared him to Derek Jeter. He's not Derek Jeter. Nobody wants him to be Derek Jeter because it's not a realistic outcome for him. But if your bat is going to struggle, you need to do everything else really well. And that is always the the crux of the matter for players like this is that because the bat carries so much value and it's so obvious, like, to me, there's nobody that can sit out here and tell you that, like, they can, with their eye test, tell you, exactly. They might have a feeling for how you run the bases. They might have a feeling for how you field. They can see blatantly, and it's hit you in the face about what you're doing batting-wise, at least from the counting stat perspective. Maybe not the under-the-hood stuff, but it's just not going to... You look at a guy like, again, completely different position, but a guy that's getting a lot of attention this year. Another young guy, just 25-year-old, Denzel Clark, the outfielder for the Athletics, who's, if you were going to rename Web Gems, you would name them Denzel Clarks, the way he's playing this year. And you look at what he's doing, and his bat is bad. There's no doubt about it. He's got a 525 OPS right now. I mean, it's only 106 plate appearances, but guy can't hit. He's probably never going to hit. But what he is doing, he is providing average base running, but providing elite fielding value. Just crazy fielding value. And, you look at guys like that and you say, okay, if we're going to hide that bat in the lineup, let's do it because of that. I look at a guy like last year, 28-year-old, and he's put up similar numbers, for outside of, I would say, outside of his 2022 season, he's kind of put up very similar numbers. But look at a guy in the outfield, another outfielder, a guy like Dalton Varsho. This is another player that is a well below average bat in every metric, but he is a high-end base runner and a 99th percentile fielder. Like, this is arguably the best center fielder in baseball defensively, who is well above average, nearly great in base running value, and has multiple years of that. There was time in 2023, in 2022, where he was actually nearing the 90th percentile, even in base running. So you're willing to deal with a player like that in your lineup when they're providing a lot of those other values, because, like, okay, well, at least when they get on, they do everything they can to maximize themselves being on base, and they're a heavy maximization in run prevention at an extremely important position, like in this case, center field, or Volpe's case, shortstop. These are extremely important run prevention positions. Extremely important. So there is a lot of value to having that. If Anthony Volpe was doing exactly what he's been doing with his bat, but was doing what he's done the last year on defense and on the base paths, we would be looking at a player that would be highly valuable and would not be getting as criticized. But when you lose a step, even for a season, and this goes back to the point where I think I lost myself in the train of thought here. But when I was talking about when I evaluate all these players, all these blah, 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 it's because it is not atypical for a player that is a great base runner or a great defensive player to have off years, to have a year in their career where all of a sudden they went from putting up elite numbers to just having a random seasons pop up here and there that are just league average. It does happen. It's not unheard of, and it doesn't necessarily portend that Anthony Volpe is not going to be able to get back to Gold Glove caliber defense. So those sorts of variances do happen year to year. However, there is a big spotlight on him. There's a big spotlight on this team. This team is in a World Series window. As long as Aaron Judge is in his prime, this team is in a World Series window. You were just in the World Series last year. And because of the construction of their lineup with so many lefties, and because of what they thought they were going to get from Anthony Volpe this year, he has been hitting a lot in key spots in the lineup. And we've talked about this on the Anthony Volpe episode, whatever it was 2 months ago. I feel like, it's unfortunately, I feel like we're having the same conversation. It's been weeks and weeks now. But he has been hitting in important spots for the Yankees. And I'm going to take another updated look at his splits. I did not mean this to turn into the Anthony Volpe podcast, but here we are. He has spent the majority of the season batting 5th or 6th. He has 268 plate appearances in the number 5 or number 6 spot of the lineup. 268. He has 64 in any other spot. And one of those was a pinch hit, which was, I believe he bat 9th in a pinch hit spot. So, and walked, by the way. So, it's just, he's being asked to come into some of these situations, and he's coming up in major RBI opportunities. And I saw a stat, and it does not account for the last 2 games the Yankees played, but out of 130 hitters in terms of win probability added with runners in scoring position, out of 130 qualified batters, he ranked 130th. So if your eyes are telling you that he's coming up a lot in big-time opportunities and not delivering, the stats back that up as well. And again, I'm not, he went 1 for 4, with a double in this game, but it's, and he's not at the center of why the Yankees lost. He does have a factor in his defense is partly why the Yankees lost on Monday, but it's emblematic of a bigger problem is that the Yankees aren't winning on the margins again. And I felt earlier in the season, yes, they had the major offensive games. Yes, they've always had the home run power. But I feel like we're back into the situation here in June where the Yankees aren't winning on the margins. They're not doing the little things well defensively. They're not doing the little things well with runners in scoring position. They're not doing the little things well in middle relief. And that's what's costing them. It's not the starter. It's not the closer. It's not a lack of power. It is the margins. And it is the things that the Yankees need to do better fundamentally in runners in scoring position, defensively, and in middle relief. Those are the areas that have continued to expose themselves in June as major areas of concern for the Yankees. And the problem is when you have guys making those errors or making those poor decisions or throwing decisions or making knucklehead plays or all that other stuff while they're also not hitting. Or if they're not hitting while also making all those plays on the other side, if you want me just to reverse that, it becomes a problem. I'm not saying everybody has to do everything well all the time. That's not a realistic standard. But you also can't do everything unwell. And that's the problem right now for the Yankees. So I'll cut the rant off here. We'll be going on all night. The Yankees fall to the Blue Jays 5-4 on Monday night. It is Canada Day in Toronto today. Happy July 1st to all one Canadian listener we probably have on this. But it'll be Max Fried taking the mound again, who's been, by the way, unbelievable in taking the mound after a loss for the Yankees. So hopefully he will be the stopper that he's been so far this year. We'll go up against Kevin Gausman, who's coming off a fantastic start against the Cleveland Guardians. He's been hit around a little bit in June, except for that last start where he went 8 innings and gave up 8 two-hit innings with no runs against the Guardians. So we will see if the Yankees can get back on track here on Tuesday.